Hi, how's it going?
Yeah, it's good. How is going on your side?
Everything's good. It's raining in Boston, but other than that, everything's good.
So, firstly, thank you for accepting my invitation and accepting to be on my show.
Of course, I've watched a few of the interviews. They're pretty interesting. I'm excited.
So, you're educator, professor, and you're a consultant. So, it's very good for me to talk with the person who is into teaching and who is into education.
Yeah, it's funny because everyone's always like, well, what do you do exactly? And my answer is always, I watched Oprah Winfrey a few weeks ago, and it's an old commencement speech she gave. And she said when she leaves the country, everyone goes, what do you do? And she just says, I'm self-employed. So that's what I say now. I say, I'm self-employed.
So, before going into your experiences, can you please introduce yourself to my audience?
Sure, sure. So my name is Lilo Altali. I was born and raised in Syria, a little village north of Damascus. Now I live in Boston, Massachusetts, where I freelance consulting. I teach at Northeastern University, and I do some design work and some course design work for other universities as well. I also take on consulting clients. I'm really someone who just kind of goes where I feel like I'm called to. And so I don't have a set job description or, this is what I want to do with my life. I kind of just follow where I feel like I'm called.
So can you tell me where your education started and what was your subjects and how
Yeah.
your journey started?
Yeah, I was terrible at school. Terrible. I was not a very good student. When I was in Syria, I really didn't know how to read well in Arabic. A lot of the teachers thought maybe I could be illiterate. And then when I came to the United States, there was some improvements, right? The United States is very focused on your education. They gave me a lot of individualized attention, helped me learn English. But I still wasn't in love with school, especially when I got to high school. Some days I would skip, some days I was bored. I wasn't too excited. And then I found this little private college in Massachusetts that really focused on immigrants and people whose English was their second language. And I think it's there that I fell in love with education. It's there that I found people who could relate to me. I found people who excited me, and professors didn't see me as this poor boy who's just learning English, or didn't see me as as somebody who was struggling in school. They saw me as someone with talent that was untapped, right? And it was their job to kind of tap into that talent. And they did such a good job, and they really got me in love with education that I pursued my graduate degree at Northeastern University right away, right after that. But if it wasn't for them, I probably would be in a very different place in my life, I think. And so my passion for education didn't really start until college. And I find that a lot with my friends who work in universities. We're not good high school students. We're not very good at high school. We're not very good at primary school. It's not until college that we kind of discover this calling and this niche, which is really interesting when you look at us that way.
So what was your subjects?
So I studied in my undergraduate, I studied healthcare management because when I came to the United States, the healthcare system seemed so complex. So coming from socialist Syria, the healthcare system is ran by the government, right? And so there's one healthcare system in the whole country. Coming to a country where it is the free market, and there's health insurance, and there's hospitals, and that like blew my mind a little bit. I was like, what is going on? And I wanted to figure it out. I wanted to understand it. I wanted to see why it was so different. I didn't end up pursuing a career in healthcare, but what I think that did is it gave me a good lens at looking at politics, right? And it gave me a good lens at understanding the world a little bit differently. And then when I went to get my master's, I got my master's in public administration, and then I got a certificate in innovation. I was really, when I was kind of going into grad school, I worked for a small design firm, and one of our directors there, our vice president there, she would keep telling me, you have to look into design, because I think your mind works really well with product design, your mind works really well with service design. And so I said, okay, let me give it a try. And I really fell in love with it. and my mind did work really, really well with it. And so I started to pursue that. And so I got a certificate there while I was doing my Master's of Public Administration. And now I am getting a doctorate. So that is that, and this will be the end. No more after this. But a doctorate in global inclusion and social development, which I think is natural. I started kind of understanding domestically. I went to public administration. I understood really well how government works, how innovations come to market, and now I think this will give me the global lens I need.
So you did graduation, the subject called, which is related to medical field, and when you came to masters, your subject is different, public administration, which is like administration, completely different. So why, what made you to take this, and who inspired you?
Yeah, that's a great question. I wanted to study healthcare management because I thought I could kind of fix the system, right, or understand the system a little bit better. But then I realized my heart wasn't there, right, and my passion wasn't there. And so I had a great professor at this small college that I told you about earlier, Newbury College, and she said, I want you to do an internship with a public administrator and kind of just see what it's like, right? And she thought that would be a good fit for me. And this is why it's so important to not always think that you have to go to the big, best elite universities, right? Sometimes the small college, that's where people are going to care about you, right? That's where you're going to find professors that are really going to spend some time with you. And she said, go spend some time with this public administrator. And, it got me interested. And then she said, I want you to do an internship with a nonprofit. And I thought, oh, that sounds interesting. And when I did that internship, I realized, wow, this is where my heart is, right? This is what I want to be doing. I'm not, yes, it's sitting in front of a desk, but I'm not constantly just crunching numbers or looking at data, right? I'm talking to people. I'm understanding relationships with people. I have to have a good understanding of politics, which I love. I have to have a good understanding of the economics around us, which I love. And so it became a natural fit for me.
And now you are a PhD student, PhD researcher. So what is your subject in this?
Yeah. So we're mostly focused around global development. We're mostly what is exactly development? Why do we call African countries less developed than the United States? Why? That's something that I'm trying to understand. And how do we wrap our head around that? Is it different cultures, right? Is it different? How do we actually, why are we, for a long time, we called other countries third world, right? First world and then third world, and which is terrible, right? Because what does that mean at all? And so I'm trying to understand development. What is it really? I have a specific focus. I am from the Middle East, so I have a specific focus on Middle Eastern populations and Middle Eastern cultures. I'm currently studying, so I'm doing one research project I'll tell you about in Maine, which is a state north of here. And it had a lot of Muslim and Arabs that were living there that no one really even knew about. And I'm talking about 100 years ago, like 100 and 150 years ago. And no one talked about it, right? Because they weren't allowed to get citizenship yet. They weren't really allowed to be American yet. And so their histories were kind of lost. And then the Spanish flu happened, and a lot of them died during the Spanish flu. And so what I'm hoping to do right now is just bring their stories to life, right? I want to tell their stories. I think storytelling, what you do, you tell stories, right? Storytelling is so important. And so I want to bring their stories to life because I think that teaches us a lot about, we think, oh, now because we can travel on airplanes, everyone's traveling and it's globalization. But I think globalization happened earlier, right? And we're just not talking about it. We're not talking about people who left their families 100 years ago to come here for whether it is just to sell things and then go back home to feed their families, right? Whatever reason that was, I want to understand it, and I want to make sure I'm telling those stories.
So what was your project in graduation?
Yeah, for my master's project, we looked at housing in Massachusetts. So there was a lack. So the city of Boston is mostly students, a lot of students here, and the city of Boston was in the state of Massachusetts was interested in how do we keep those students here, right? Because they get their education here and then they go to San Francisco or they go to Salt Lake City or they go to other, well, we want to keep them here, right? They got educated here. We want them to grow here. We want to keep them here. And so I did a lot of research on what are creative solutions that we can keep them here. What is housing a problem? Why is housing a problem? How do we get past that? How do we transcend that? Housing in Boston's very, very expensive. And so how do we make sure we overcome that? And so there was a lot of the public administration work, right? It was the navigating state politics, the navigating of navigating of local city politics. It was understanding housing and understanding market dynamics. And so it was really the perfect project to bring all the skills together.
And it's completely different, right? So you worked on different subject when you was a graduate student, and the project was different. And when you came to masters, and your master's project is different. Now you are a research student, and now your project is different. But the common thing here is your interest. What I'm understanding is you are trying to understand the whole thing. You are interested in the broad perspective. You want to see the world from the top view.
Yes, absolutely. I am someone who's very interested at sitting at the top, right, and kind of looking at the world below and just seeing how is it moving, right? How is it operating? I'm very fascinated by that. I also just, it's funny, you laid out, you're like, this is different than this. This project is different than this, which is.
So you was giving answer for the question that I asked.
Okay. And I was just about to talk about the, when you mentioned, oh, you did this and it's different than this and it's right and it's different than that. And what I was going to say is I find a lot of people are stuck, right? Because they want to be one thing. And I think that's been programmed in us. I think if you think back to when you were young, your parents asked you, what do you want to be when you grow up, right? What do you want to be? What are you going to be when you grow up? And they said, there was one answer, right? You couldn't tell them I wanted to be this and that and that and that and that. There was one answer. And if you come from international global families, it was doctor or lawyer, right? You couldn't give any other answer. That was the only acceptable answer. And so I want to make sure folks, especially young folks, are okay knowing that there's so many paths, right? So many paths. And that is so important for us to recognize that there isn't just one thing to be. And who just wants to be one thing, right? Why can't you be an interviewer and a social media influencer and a journalist and a serious writer and a doctor? You know what I mean? Why can't you be the mixture of all those beautiful things? And so I think once we break free, because that's what we need to do, we need to break free from that thinking that says there's one job for us, right? Once we break free from that, it's liberating. And then I'm able to pursue this project here, right? Or this project here, or this project here. Because I'm no longer focused on one thing. I'm just focused at what excites me.
So right now, your project is going on.
Yeah, it's the project in Maine that I'm working on that is taking up a lot of time. Hopefully I'll be done with that by 2022. So towards the early 2022, I'll be hopefully done by that and I'll have written something. And then I can move off to something else. But I also have a lot of projects going on where I'm designing a few courses. And so I teach at Northeastern and I'm designing 2 courses there, as well as teaching courses there. So I tend to do that in between my PhD projects as well.
So as a professor, what do you teach?
So I teach in across 2 programs. So I teach in our Masters of Science in Project Management and Masters of Science in Nonprofit Management program. In our Masters of Science in Project Management program, I teach design thinking. So students come into our class, they just have an idea in their mind, and we use design thinking to bring it to life. They design a product. So they'll leave the class with an app, or they'll leave the class with an actual product they designed. So that's one course I teach that I really, really love teaching. The other one's focused on leadership. So once you're leading a project within an organization, how do you take on the leadership role, right? And how do you navigate the top? How do you navigate the bottom? How do you pick your fights, right? Because working in organizations, especially large organizations, are all about picking fights, right? It's which fight do you want to pick? And so knowing which fight is, appropriate to pick, how do you actually negotiate for resources you need, right? Those are all really important skills. And I teach another course in our project management called Agile, which is how do we move quick, right? How do we bring things to market quickly? Instead of sitting back for 2 years and planning things out, how do we just get it to market? Like what you did, right? You didn't take 2 years to plan this interview. You said, let's talk about it and let's do it, right? Let's make it happen. That type of skill set, right, is really, really important. And then in the nonprofit and public administration end, I teach a lot on measuring social impact. How do we make impact in the world? What does impact mean? How do we measure it? I teach a lot on social innovation. How do you take an idea and use innovation practices to bring that idea to life? And so those are, I feel blessed. I really feel blessed because these are my passions. These 4 courses make me so happy. And so the fact that I get to teach them is everything to me. And it's really, really exciting for me.
So as a research student, you observe only the politics and other administrations in only in US or in other countries. Like you came from Syria, so you observe how the administration is going on in Syria, and also me living in India. Have you, as a researcher, do you observe other countries' administration for your for the development of your work? For the development of your project?
Focusing on India because India is very interesting because you're a young democracy, but the biggest democracy in the world, right? And so it is very interesting. A lot of innovative things are happening, especially with your support. And so India is of special focus for a lot of my peers. I do not personally focus there. I do focus a lot on the Arab world, and I do focus a lot on some African countries. So I'm working with a professor who did a project in Tanzania, and I helped her evaluate how effective that program was in Tanzania. And so we do focus more on that, and we work a lot with refugees, Palestinian refugees, Syrian refugees. Iraqi refugees is a lot of my focus as well, and a lot of my peers also focus on Latin America. But what makes our program unique and why I chose this program is most programs you focus very domestically, right? You're very interested either in a specific niche, like if I got my PhD in healthcare management, I would have to know healthcare laws of each country, but just healthcare, right? If I got my PhD and international politics, my focus would just be maybe political science, a little bit of international relations. What makes our degree different is we have to know the whole system, right? We have to know how politics is influencing the healthcare system. How is that influence coming down from the United Nations? What is the role of the United Nations? We spend 2 courses just trying to understand the United Nations, right? What are their role? What role do they play in the world, and how do they come about? Trying to understand the 2030 agenda, right? Trying to understand the human rights documents, and do they actually play a role, or are they just pretty documents, right, that sit on a website somewhere? Or do they have power? Do they hold power in the world? And so that's what makes our program so unique, is it's the systematic overall view, right? You can't just say, I'm going to focus on the Indian Supreme Court, or I'm going to focus on Afro-Colombians, or I'm going to focus on indigenous people in Brazil, right? Because then you miss the whole system, right? You miss everything that's operating in that system. And so that's what makes us unique, is we have to know it all, right? And everyone should know it all, right? Everyone should attempt to know it all. And I think what I'm learning, the biggest thing I'm learning, is that I don't know anything, right? That's the biggest thing you learn. Once you come across the United Nations and you come across international politics and histories, you sit back and you go, I don't know anything, right? Because there's so much out there to know. And I hope everyone is on that journey where they've realized that there's so much they don't know, right? And there's so much they should know, right? And that requires an ongoing effort every single day to make sure that we are aware of what's going on around us.
So you observed American society and African society, and you're comparing and knowing what is working to be the better system and the administration, how the system is working. So, what is the difference that you observed, and what is the reason why the developed countries developed, and how what are the things that is making system so strong and so powerful, and helping a lot of people to get employment and get whatever they wanted?
Well, that's the $1 million question. Once you figure that out, you tell me, and then we'll write a book together. One thing that I have observed, first, there's no easy answer, right? There's no answer, no easy answer to that question. But we have to start with what is meant by development, right? To some people, development is making sure you have a place to sleep at night, you have food on your table, right? You're able to take care of your family financially. To other people, development means markets and large-scale employment and a working healthcare system, right? And a working free market. And so trying to understand, what do we mean by development? And that's not easy, right? People will spend their whole lives trying to argue with each other, what is development? What is meant by development, right? And so trying to really understand what we mean by development, then we understand, well, why have we labeled this country less developed than the other, right? But if you look at history, a little bit more historical, and conservative economists like Thomas Sowell has done work on this, other folks have done work on this. Sometimes it's as lucky as geography, right? If you have a lot of coastal land, if you have good geography, right, you're just blessed with the ability to have larger markets, ports, exports, imports, right? Good trade. And so sometimes development happens, right? In the United States, we're surrounded by ports, right? And so development can happen in that way, right? And so there's so many little things that we don't quite understand of how different countries, and a lot of scholars are doing work on this, why certain countries have thrived and certain have not, right? And democracy and democratic institutions are critical, right? You have to be able to have good standing democratic institutions, and no one has cracked that, I don't think, not even the United States, right? We're experimenting, and sometimes our experiments don't go well, right? And sometimes they go very well. But what we're learning is that it's really, really fragile, what we have, right? The democratic institutions that we build. And you can look to India, right? You can look to the United States, maybe you can look to Chile, right? The democratic institutions, Western Europe, the democratic institutions we've built are fragile, but they're necessary, right? They're really, really necessary. And so how do we make sure they're strong and they're becoming stronger, right? And how do we ensure that for the rest of the world? And trying to understand systems that are coming out of China, right, are very different than systems that are coming out of the United States. And so we want to, I think that's going to be interesting to watch. Again, I don't have the answers to that, right? But it'll be interesting to watch and see what development looks like in 10 years, right? What does it mean to be developed or undeveloped, underdeveloped, and 20 years, and 30 years, and 40 years, right? And is anyone really underdeveloped, right? Because if we don't know what developed is, if I can't tell you, hey, this is what it means to be developed, is anyone really underdeveloped, right? And so those are the tough questions that we have to really wrestle with, I think. Sorry, that wasn't an easy answer.
So you have all these observations. You are observing the globe and seeing different parts, administration. So what your take on this? What you are going to do with this collection of information, and what is the change that is going to happen, and what is the contribution that this globe is going to get from you?
Wow. That is major questions. I don't know if I'm ready to answer all those questions. What I think is really, what I hope my contribution is, and I'm not someone who has this like, oh, I want to be remembered as X, right? Or I want to be remembered as Y. I hope that with my life, what I'm able to do is be aware, right? Be aware of the world around me. Recognize always that I don't know it all, right? And so if I don't know it all, I can never be mad at someone who disagrees with me, because I actually don't know much, right? And so I have to keep learning and I have to keep consuming. And so what I hope that I can do is just be self-aware, someone who was able to recognize patterns, right, and react on those patterns in the world. And that's what I kind of pride myself on, is I'm never someone to sit back and make theories and make assumptions of how the world works. I'm someone who likes to see what's happening, right? What are the patterns in the world? And then I kind of jump on them. And I am someone who needs and appreciates really different perspectives, right? A lot of researchers will just read people that follow their same political beliefs, right? People that follow the same kind of belief system and ideologies. I'm not that person, right? I will read 3 books. I'm reading 3 books right now. One by someone who is very conservative, right? Thomas Sowell, very conservative economist, right? Another one who's very liberal and very, is trying to understand race and gender, Evelyn Glenn, right? And then I'm reading someone kind of in between. And so I have these really different views and then someone in the middle, and I'm trying to just kind of understand it all, right? Where are they coming from? And I think we need to be able to do that, right? And unfortunately in school, what happens, especially graduate education, is we only get the ideologies of the syllabus, right? The syllabus maybe only mentions one ideology in one type of book. And so we need to be it requires us to take our own kind of chances and take our own initiative to say, okay, well, I need to learn these different perspectives. And that's what I hope to be doing. So I don't have I'm going to do X and I'm going to do it well. But I hope that I can see the patterns in the world. And I hope that when I do see those patterns in the world, I can respond well.
So overall, what do you think, as an observer, as a research student, what do you think that is working for the system creators and the system people who are running the system, who are working in the system, and who are responsible for the system? As a top year, what do you think that is working, and what do you think that works in common? What is the common quality that they have?
Yeah, that's a great question. And I think I'm going to look to history, right? Because right now we're kind of all experimenting, especially after COVID, and because we don't know how to deal with this, right? And so we are launching these solutions, but they're experiments, right? In 5 years, we're going to learn some of them didn't work at all, and some of them were terrible, right? And some of them were wonderful, and some of them we should replicate. I think to history, what showed us what's been working, right, is when a state doesn't get too involved in its people, right? It's not involved every day in decisions that are being made. Some decisions are left to the market, right? And when we see that the market is allowed to be a little bit more free, we see that there are a lot of progress in the world, right? Free markets and capitalism, although it's bad and it has a lot of terrible things wrong with it, it has actually lifted a lot of people out of poverty, right? It has moved capital from west to east and it has lifted people. And so although it's bad, the alternative is not better, right? And that's the question we always have to ask when we say, wow, these greedy, people love to pick on Amazon's Jeff Bezos, right? And Elon Musk of Tesla, these greedy people, right? It's all their fault, these greedy people. But really, yes, capitalism allowed them to be where they are and the free market allowed them to be where they are. But what's the alternative, right? Do we have an alternative? So instead of just saying, wow, this just creates greedy people, or this system isn't working, or this system doesn't work for X population, Y population, okay, what's the alternative, right? And if it's not capitalism, then is it a form of some socialism, right? And we look to Cuba, what's happening in Cuba and what's happening in Venezuela and in Syria. And then we go, okay, that's not a good alternative, right? And so we have to be able to really sit and think beyond what we already know, because what we end up doing is sitting down with the different puzzle pieces and we try to connect them, but everyone has a different image in their head, right? And so you and I are connecting the same puzzle pieces, but you're thinking of a completely different picture than me, right? And so what I hope what I tell my students to do and what I hope my students do is to throw away the puzzle pieces, right? And to start from scratch and to paint their own picture, right? And it's not until we're able to push that, right? Push beyond that. Because what happens right now, it's I'm right, you're wrong, you're right, I'm wrong. We're going back and forth trying to figure out those policies to change the system, right? But really, instead of saying, okay, well, maybe there's something new that you and I can develop together, right? And the commonality, when you ask about the commonality in fixing the system, right? The commonality has always been leaving the state out of it, right? It's minimum state intervention. Free markets have allowed to operate, right? States have intervened, right? But they have not, I have to be careful how I say this because I'll get in trouble. They did not, states did not intervene to such a degree that it infringed on individual liberties, right, as it does in this country like Cuba, right? And it did not intervene to such extents that it really infringed on free business, right, and free enterprise as it does in Syria. And so we have to, that's the commonality, is that the state has to dance this delicate dance. And maybe one day I'll write a book about it when I'm much older and have much more experience about what the state's role should be. But the state has to do this delicate dance of making sure it's not infringing, right? And often what the people perceive to be good, right? The state giving us money, that's good. We love money, right? And the state's giving us free money, right? We have to be really careful because history has shown us that once we let the state give us that much security, the state will need some freedom in return, right? And that can be dangerous, and that can be very dangerous. And so we have to be just mindful of that. We have to be aware of that, right? And so I think it's the state's role has been a commonality. I think it's the role of business, right? Business plays a very important role in our lives. And the ability to innovate, the ability to create, the ability to launch new products, that's so important, right? Think of the COVID vaccine. We developed a vaccine in a year, right? That's mind-blowing, right? Mind-blowing. We were able to do that. We need that ability to innovate, right? That ability to create. And so we need to give incentives to young people like you, right? Who are creating, who are doing content, incentives to keep going, right? And to keep creating, because those are the things that are going to change the world. And so we have to make sure we're incentivizing them. And we don't incentivize that by fringing on them, by going, we're going to monitor everything you do and we're going to make sure you're successful. No, we say, we know you're going to fail, right? And it's okay to fail. It's okay to get things wrong, right? And that requires that you have liberty, you have individual freedom, and you operate in a market that is free, right? A market that lets your ideas travel, a market that lets you travel, a market that lets, capital flow to you, capital flow out of you. That is, I think, the commonalities, those three factors: the individual freedom, the free enterprise, and then the ability to innovate and create. And unfortunately, I think the world is really right now focused on being secure and being comfortable, and we're losing sight of freedom, right? We talk a lot about equality and equity. We're not talking so much about freedoms, right? And I think that's something that I've just observed. And it doesn't make me scared, but it makes me a little bit nervous, right? That we're not having a lot of conversations about freedom.
So recently, in an interview, Sundar Pichai said that when the interviewer asked that Elon Musk and the Amazon CEO head of the Amazon, Jeff Bezos, are going into the space, Blue Origin and SpaceX. So what do you do? So do you have a plan to go into space? He said, no, I'm jealous of them, but let me take care of the Earth, the globe first. So I will take care of the Earth. So let them do what they are doing. So my question to you is, you want to be on this planet, or you want to, because you are studying the public administration, you are understanding the systems, and you are knowing you're knowing what is working and what is not working, and you are seeing the small things. So you want to be on the planet or above the planet?
Oof. I am scared that we're going to ruin another planet. We've already ruined one planet. I'm scared that we're going to ruin two planets. I think my work is here. It's grounded here, literally grounded here. Uh, I don't know. I understand out of curiosity, right? There's a need to explore space. I also understand out of national security, right? There's a need to explore space. I don't know if I am concerned so much with what's happening up there, but I should be. I should be more aware of what's happening above me, right? But no, I think for the meantime, I'm concerned. I'm grounded. I am standing on Earth. I am going to stay on Earth. But who knows? Maybe in 30 years, if you can take a buzz to Mars, maybe I'll hop on that buzz. Who knows?
You can create the better administration on the other planet. If Elon Musk or there's Jeff Bezos, if they go and they create another society there, so I think you can be the best administrator because you already studied and you know what is working in this world.
That's what it's gonna read on my resume. First administrator of Mars. That's
Correct.
what it's gonna read.
So, how your research work is going right now? So how what are the observations and how much time you are spending on it?
Yeah, so my research is going well. I got recent some money so I can do more of it in Maine, which is good. Starting September, I'll really be able to kind of dive deep into it and focus on it for a year. I'll have a professor to guide me. She's done a lot more research than me in this area, so it'll be great to have her guidance. But right now, for July and August, I'm traveling a lot, right? Because a lot of the things that we have to do, and if you look at my Instagram, it's like constant travel. The ideas are there, but I have to let them sit, right? I can't go straight from idea to writing, right? And you have to kind of let them marinate in your head and think over them, see them differently, right? Maybe do some writing in a different country, right? Or do some writing in a different city, or even just a different place than your home, just to change the environment, right? And so that's what I'm doing right now. It's just I keep on writing a little bit here and there, trying to look at it from very different perspectives.
So, as a person who did masters in software engineering, I just want to know. So, what is your take? What is your observation on information technology industry right now? So, I'm sure you have put your mind on it. So, how it is growing, and what is the change that you observed in past few years and now?
Yeah. Everything is information technology, right? What isn't information technology? Everything is. And there's a technological element to almost everything we do, right? And so your type of skills and your type of mindset would serve really well, I think, just getting us ahead and getting us to where we need to be. I mean, even COVID vaccines, right? Now we're going to have passports. There's even a technological element to that, right? And so thinking about all these technological elements, I think the problem is going to be is how do we keep the human in the technological element, right? How do we keep the human element? And that's where my course in design thinking comes in, where we teach we need to center the human, right? We need to design beautiful digital applications and beautiful websites and beautiful well-engineered products, but where's the human? Right. And so the more we are able to kind of ground ourselves in the human aspect. And I think what's really interesting about you is you have this technical skills, right? You have the technical skills, but you have the people skills, right? And that's the beautiful blend, right? That's where the magic's going to happen, is when we're able to combine the digital and the people. Like that is beautiful. And I think and that's not an easy skill set, right? Because we either tend to be focused on one or the other. And someone who can blend both, I think that's golden. I think that's what we're going to need. You'll be on Mars too, because they'll need you.
So what I understood, I have a subject in graduation in my computer science and engineering, one subject called computer networks. It is about computer networks. So I understood that computer networks, connecting one computer with other computer and connecting networks, one network with other network, like connecting one region with other region. So connecting one country with other countries' computers and sending information and exchanging information. It can be visuals, video, audio, document, anything. So this I have as a blogger, as a writer, I wrote about the subject in my website, how the information is sending and what is happening in between this. What is the medium that is helping to reach, and how those receivers are accepting and how much it is accepting. All this observation, by understanding this, while doing my masters, I was writing and understanding these networks, and I thought this computer networks is the thought of a human being. You know, a human being created this system, this device. So he understanding the human psychology, uh, he understood that we need a device with which we can communicate and send the information and the data that we have, and we need storage devices, and we need something to store, and so that even if we are not there after 100 years, some people can still see what happened before years and all. So that is why the reason these data centers, all these AWS services, I'm working on. As I'm also AWS solution architect trainee. So my job is to understand the services of Amazon, and store informations in that data center, and where to store, how to store, what are the services which is needed in the 200 services which is there. So all this information, understanding this, I thought this is the thought of a human being. So this is a thought of a human being. So this information transfer is because of human thought. So then I thought, if computers are interacting and sending information, and if I understood how it is going from one to other, so I thought to be a man on this planet who can communicate and connect with any part of any human being who is working in any field, and who is understanding. I mean, who can talk with anybody who is working in any field and who is from any region or any country. So I thought that I got this thought last year in this month, I think, and I started it. I took like 450 or 500 interviews for into different parts of more than 90 countries. I
Wow.
have connected and I have exchanged words, and it worked. And I just want to send a message to the world that a human being from a particular part of the world can connect and communicate and can exchange information, can talk and can understand anything. And just want to send this information. Just I'm doing my job. Other than that, I want to do something to the world, like you are doing. You are into public administration, which is a very big, very large subject. You have to manage all the systems in the society. So I'm not going to be that great. I'm not going to have that broad perspective, but at least one person from one country, to know their perspectives and what their take on.
You are
Uh,
great. You are great. Don't downplay. Don't downplay what you're doing. What you're doing is huge, right? In a world where we're so polarized, a world where we don't want to talk to each other, a world where if someone has a different political belief than us, we don't want to talk to them. You are bringing ideas to people, and I think that's the good work. And so I'm glad someone's doing it, and I'm glad you're doing it. So you are doing great work. Don't undermine yourself.
so what do you say about this connecting dots, this
Yeah.
communication and connecting dots, and trying to put it in a particular platform? And what is your observation as a research student, as a person who is into different subjects? You are into medical field and you are into public administration. Now you are understanding the African society policies, administration, and US, why it is developing, and all these aspects. So what, as your mind is very 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 big. So in that, so tell
All
me
over the
about that.
place.
Yeah.
You said something really important, and I hope your viewers heard you. You said connecting the dots, right? very few of us can connect the dots because we are seeing one dot, right? Or we're living in one dot. And I think that lesson that you just gave us and you just gave the world, connect the dots, ooh, that's an important lesson, right? Everyone should write it down on a piece of paper and put it right in front of their desk, right? Connect the dots. And so when you're seeing something happen here or you're seeing something happen here, connect the dots, right? Make sure that you are able to connect those things. I think that's I love that you said that. That's so important, I think. I think it's critical. I was interested as you were talking computer systems. The country of Estonia is now almost all digital, right? Their driver's license is digital, their health insurance is digital. Everything kind of lives on their phone. And so I assume that Estonia, the small country, will probably be the future of how we operate, right? We're all going to move towards this future. And so I think what you were talking about is understanding how these systems talk to each other. It's going to be more and more critical, right? Because these very complex systems, right? A complex healthcare system has to be able to talk to a complex immigration system, that has to be able to talk to a complex educational system, right? And we have to know how these communication lines are going to work. And so I see that becoming, Estonia, I think, is a great example because they're doing it and they're doing it well. I see that becoming a kind of the norm as we move into the future. And I think for those of you who are in your field and have not kind of learned about Estonia, just look it up. It's so incredible how this small little country has just become, everything is digital. Everything, right? There is nothing that's being done by paper or nothing that's being done by the exchange of cards. It's all digital. And so to think through that, right? You're logging in, you're seeing your license, you're paying your electric bill, you're seeing your health insurance, you're enrolling your kid in school, and you're doing it all on your phone, right? And it's to think of that in one portal is pretty amazing. And I think your skill sets are going to be really important. But I think we have to be able to connect the dots, right? We're not going to be able to do that work. We're not going to be able to get our society there if we can't connect those dots.
So, do you have any message and anything that you want to say to the world and world who is watching and listening to this?
Yes. I'll end on this note. Experiment, right? You don't know what's going to work. You don't know what you want to do. Give yourself the liberty, give yourself the grace, give yourself the permission to experiment, to be wrong, to fail, and to fail fast, right? To not be afraid to say, I am going to try this, and I don't know if it will work, right? But I am going to try this because I am going to experiment. And once you allow yourself that liberty, you allow yourself that freedom to say, I am going to experiment. And hopefully we live in a country such as India or the United States where we're able to do a little bit more experimentation. And we then break free, right? We're able to kind of break free and say, wow, I've discovered what I want to do. Wow, I'm happy, right? Wow, this is what I need to be doing. But it requires breaking free and saying, I need to experiment, and it's okay if I experiment, and it's okay if I fail.
So, at last, what do you say about this? What do you say? What do you think that is working for me to connect with everybody who is into every different field? What do you think that is working for me?
I think what's working for you and what I love about you and your channel is you're curious, right? And you are not interviewing one type of person. You're not learning about one type of person. You're curious, right? And so many people are so concerned with being interesting, right? I'm the most interesting person in the room. I have the best job, but not a lot of people are interested, right? And I think what's great about you is you're interested, right? You want to learn more. You want to take on more. You're asking those questions of, I love what you just told me about the computer systems and how that relates to your interviews, right? You're connecting those dots And so I think that's powerful. I think that's magic, actually, right? And so I'm so excited that you're doing that. And I'm so excited that the world has your voice, the world has your energy. And I cannot wait to see what you will accomplish in 5 to 10 years. I think it's going to be pretty magical.
So definitely, maybe after 5 or 10 years, I will take your interview again after completion of your project and you becoming a scientist and you working in a great organization individually. And I want to tell again what you're doing and how much what the work that you did. So I think I strongly believe that only if I understand the public administration and talk with the people like you, I can understand these computer systems better, because human being is understanding the society and creating devices and this technology based on the information that people like you are giving. So your information is very important, and your collection of thoughts, your projects, the projects you give, we understand that, and we create the mobile applications or the web applications, and better only we understand you. I think you come first on this planet, then we come as IT people, because only IT came after human beings.
No, that's true, but IT has evolved and developed human beings, right? And so you are taking us into the future, and without you, I can't imagine. When you ask me what does development mean, right? It's what you're doing, right? It's developing us into a future pathway, which is beautiful. So thank you.
So do you provide any service, online consultants, and do you have anything that you want to share to my audience?
Sure. So folks can check me out at growingpains.co. So just not .com, .co. Okay, growingpains.co. And feel free to follow me on Instagram or LinkedIn. Lilo Altali. Folks can reach out. I'm happy to talk with folks at any time. And that's something, I'm kind of like you. I'm happy to jump on a call, start a conversation. And I think that's really healthy. So feel free to reach out.
So if you send me your links, I'll put in the description of this video. People who finds our video on YouTube can find you and can see the work that you're doing and can connect with you.
Perfect. Thank you so much for this and for your time.
Yeah, thank you very much again for giving me your time and telling me about your work and your experience and where you came from and what made you to do so many things.
Of course.
So
All right.
can I put this audio and video clip on my YouTube channel with your permission?
Sure, you can put it on YouTube or Instagram, whatever you do.
Yeah, and also on my website, podcast, internet, social media, everywhere with your permission.
Absolutely, absolutely.
Yeah, thank you very much, sir, for giving me your
Thank you.
valuable time, and keep going, keep doing what you love.
All right, we'll talk soon. Thank you for all you do.
Yeah, bye.